Welcome back to Rick Scale Model Fix and another episode of the continuing build with the Kinetic F-104J Starfighter in 1/48 scale. In this video we're going to the conclusion of the build. There's quite a bit still to do, and we're just going to focus on masking and painting the canopy sections at the moment. So just off camera before, I have masked up the opening centre section using Tamiya masking tape. I've masked up the front windscreen section again using Tamiya masking tape, and just about to do the rear section for the avionics bay. So we're going to mask this before we get them into paint. So we're just going to use strips of tape, and we're going to look for the straight edges first. So naturally this is going to be along the bottom, but we're just going to check first of all whether the tape will go around the curve of the glass, which it will. So we'll leave that one in place. So we're just matching it up to the frame, like so. I'm going to trim those ends, they get in the way. That blade is a little bit dull, so always put a new blade in your knife when you're dealing with clear parts. You don't want to be pressing down with too much force, and you're going to mark the plastic. So that's the first section in place, and that's defined this front edge. We may as well have a look and see if we can do that rear edge as well. So we're just lining it up. So pulling it tight as we go, being very careful not to stress the plastic. A nice straight line there. So we'll just trim these edges off again and fold them over for now. And then we're left with this centre section, which we will just do as a hole. Now we just need to define whether, I don't think there actually is a panel line there. That goes flush to the edge, so we'll leave it as that. So that sits on the opening part behind the canopy. So we need to get some paint on this now. So we'll just put a bit of just tape a bit of kitchen paper to the mat. So when dealing with clay parts, it's important to remember that they are actually clear, and this in itself needs a special approach. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to prime these parts. Now luckily the AK Interactive primer is a similar colour to the internal section of the airframe, so we'll get away with this. So we've mounted the clear parts on some blue tack and a cocktail stick, and we're just going to blast some grey primer into the parts, and this acts as two-stage. First it primes the parts for the paint to go on top, plus it replicates the internal colour of the cockpit through the glass when viewed from inside. So spraying away from the masking and opening areas. So we'll just give that a second just to dry off. So we'll give that a second to dry off before we come back to that. So join me back in the cutting mat in a few. So the next step that we're going to do is to paint the parts black. So basically this just stops them being transparent even with a layer of paint over the top, so that when they're viewed they don't show light through. Nothing worse than seeing a beautiful model, well prepared, well finished, and when you look at the open canopy you can see light through the plastic. So we're just laying this black coat on. There we go. So I'll just clean the airbrush out before the final stage. So join me back in a second. So the final step in the canopy painting is for the final fuselage colour, which we've used throughout the build, which is Alclad 102 Duraluminium. So we'll just put some small amount in the airbrush. Just check that it's all silver coming through. And we're just going to build this up in the traditional manner. We don't want to get this too wet at this stage because it'll start reacting with the paint underneath. So the black base to this will give this a slightly different hue to the fuselage, which is good. But we can go over it with another colour, which I think I'll just do for the front windscreen, just to give it a little bit of variety. I'll just go back to this rear section. Bit of a heavier layer this time going down. And back to that centre section just to build that final polish layer of Duraluminium. And there we go. So that's the canopies painted. It's imperative that they are left now for a fair reasonable amount of time, as we put quite a few layers of paint on, and that all needs to dry. So while the top surface may feel and appear to be dry, it could still be soft underneath. You're going to bruise the paintwork and leave fingerprints in it. So still a lot more to do. So join me back in the cutting mat in due course and we'll have a look how the build's progressing. Welcome back to the cutting mat. So we've done quite a bit to the Starfighter since we last saw it as a whole model. So I've now glued the tip tanks in place, and we're just starting to build up the speed brakes. We've put the warning stripe around the rear fuselage, and we're just waiting for the decal setting solution to dry fully so we can trim that. So we're just going to add the air brake parts. So I've already attached and put in place this side. And making sure we get the correct part. That one, and these just simply go into two locating pins in the fuselage, hot sockets in the fuselage, and rest on the retraction and operating jack, which is there. So we'll just put a bit of super glue in there, tiny bit in the hole. So straight in vertically to start with, and then into place. And that's it. That's one's done. And then we'll repeat it on the other side. So this retraction jack goes in situ like that. Checking that the angle's similar there, which it is. And then the air brake part goes in there, like so. Give it some super glue. Just making sure inside that it lines up, which is now easier said than done. So apologies if the camera doesn't focus on this section while I just do this before the glue dries. And then we have the air brakes now deployed. So I think we'll just trim a bit of surplus decal off the top there. And then what we're going to need to do is with this is we just need to use this piece that we've just trimmed off with some decal setting solution just to go over the forward, the leading edge of the fin there. So we'll get some decal set solution on there. Actually, we don't need that much. Just get it to line up. Put some setting solution on and coax it over. So all we're doing there is just making sure that that red band is continuous. There we go. So there we have the speed brakes applied to the model. It looks a little bit different than the one I did previously with the air brakes closed. So once all the decals and everything have dried, we can just trim off these surplus areas such as this one. It'd probably be easier that just to sand it off. I think so. And it's time to look elsewhere. So one thing that we do need to do is this fiberglass panel at the cockpit's end. So whilst all that's drying at the back, we can work on this area here. So this panel is a fiberglass colour, as can be seen on the 2Bob's decal sheet. So what we shall do is we'll remove this panel, because it's still only a push fit. Don't forget, we've got the canopy glass that will go in there when that's dry. And we're just going to mask this area here. So this we have to be really careful of, because we've got a decal in place there. So what we're going to do is we're going to detack the tape. So on the palm of my hand, I'm just going to continually rub this tape until it's lost pretty much all its adhesive. And then we're just going to mask up the panel. Same again, just keep sticking it down, picking it up, getting your fingers on it. And I'm just going to trim that to a straight edge, because I don't really want it to go onto the national insignia. And then we just got to bring this part over. So we'll use some 6mm tape for that. And again, we're going to detack this to 1 inch of its life, because I don't want to pull that refueling point decal off. Now they have got a clear coat on, so in theory that should protect it. And then we're just going to carefully spray in with something like a desert yellow from Tamiya. Not too concerned about the back of this panel. It's just basic. So we're just going to make sure that we've got the outline of that mask. So. Just making sure it is only that central spine area, and then we can just put a cross piece at the very bottom of the spike. So this bit needs to just come up a little bit. Like so. Let's make sure we get that straight. And we're good to go. So to paint this fiberglass panel, we're just going to use Tamiya XF60, which is dark yellow. So we put some in the airbrush, and we're just going to very gently, close range, just spray this in. making sure we don't get miles of overspray over the unmasked areas. Not forgetting to do this centre seam. So that does look a little bit dark, so I'm just going to add a brush full of sandy yellow, which is a little bit lighter. From so I'll just lighten it up a touch. Like so. Not wanting to spray it really towards the model. So we've painted that panel, and now we're just going to very carefully just lift this masking tape as to not pull any of the decals off. This is where it definitely pays to have detacked the tape, as we saw just prior to painting. There we go. So once that's dried fully and had a wash applied, it'll bring that colour out, and then we'll just unmask the canopy avionics bay cover as well. And we'll push that back in place. So that's another job done. So really all that's left to do now is the smaller detail parts, such as the pitot tubes, canopy glass. So it's at this point we're going to start introducing a wash. So for that wash I'm going to use Flory Models Dark Dirt Wash, and we're just going to apply this to the front end first. I'm just going to put a bit into a tray, using a brush that I use for washes. We're just going to start painting this on the model, just making sure we get it in all those panels. So I'm just taking care not to try and get it on too much of the red at the moment. Just painting it on. And underneath as well. and we're just going to leave that to dry. So just off camera, I've been working on the Starfighter, and we can see that we've now got the ejector seat into the cockpit with the Edard etch seat belts. Hopefully the camera can pick that up. We've added the clear rear section to the avionics panel, and that will now sit in place like so. So we've just got the hood to do at the front of the coaming. I've also tinted the front canopy, and the rear, the centre section is ready for its detail parts to be added. Elsewhere around the airframe, the wash has been added and removed, and all in all the model's now looking more or less complete and ready for the final part, where we'll add the lenses and the final sort of matte satin coat. So thanks for following. If you've liked what you've seen in this episode, then please subscribe. There's certainly more to come on the channel. So thanks, and until next time, stay safe, stay at home, and take care.